Welcome to the Dragon Slayer podcast by East Idaho Credit Union. My name is Steven. With me, as always, is Bailey. And today, our guest, Dutch from Action Motorsports. Dutch, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is a cool thing.
Okay, so first off, we all were trying to figure out what is Dutch's actual name.
I love it.
We were like, do you know his name? Do you know his name? We just know you by Dutch, kind of like Prince or Sting or Bono, right? It's just the one name thing, right?
Yeah, so my full name is Steven Dutcher. So
there you go. Yeah,
we
I
got
like
Stevens, but there's a lot of Steves and Stevens around, and there's not a lot of Dutches. And it's just been a family nickname that my brothers had, in
right?
sports. Yeah. And so there's not a lot of Dutches, so it's a little more memorable. And when you're in retail and sales, that's what you want.
Yeah.
I heard something to set you apart.
I heard it one time. I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
How many people do you know their name Dutch? Okay, so if you had to pick, like, what is your one name? Like, if you were going to go, like, the artists of Bono or Sting or something, what would yours be?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure right now.
Dutch has his.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? Zach, do you have one?
That.
Andrea, do you have one?
Giving us the look.
All right, maybe everybody, that'll be homework for later, right? We'll just think about it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask. What's yours?
Ooh.
It's your fame name.
It's a tough one. Yeah. I want it to be something like...
Stevie.
No, I don't love that, I don't think. I want it to be something that, like, really is, like, what I'm about. Just real manly and good looking. All of those things. How do you combine that into one word? We'll have to think about it. Yeah. I'm not sure yet.
I was going to pick one, but I was like, it's just a cuss word now. It's like, dang it.
I love that.
Goodness. Okay, so Dutch, we know you as the GM over at Action Motorsports. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how you got there. And, the path that your life took. And so much of these stories we hear, like we started like their career renaissance or whatever, but they tend to go back even further because so much of like what happened here came from like your childhood or growing up or anything like that. So give us a little bit about your background before you got to Action Motorsports.
Cool. So I went to BYU in Provo, Utah, and studied business. Now, I will tell you, I wasn't planning on studying business. I always thought I would be a dentist because I loved beautiful teeth and grateful to my parents for getting me braces. And I thought, okay, you can make some money and the schedule rocks. And so that's what my plan was, but it didn't feel right. And so I decided I would go into business because it's pretty broad.
What didn't feel right about it?
I don't know.
Because it was a good pitch there. I liked it. And then you're like, but I didn't want to do it. So what was it that made you say I don't want to do it?
It's just the feeling you get as you remember being in college thinking, holy cow, the rest of my life is going to be impacted by this decision. Yeah. Which path am I going to pick?
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. It was so much pressure, and we have family in college, and I don't envy their situation because that's stressful. Mm-hmm. But for me, as I prayed about it and thought about it, it just didn't feel right. And so I started exploring business, and it felt right. And it was cool. It looked good. And today, I literally use every single business class I had at BYU in my current role, which is so cool. So I'm so grateful I did that. But
yeah, you don't hear many people say, "Yeah, I really use my degree a lot." Like that's I studied political science and I nothing. I don't do anything with that.
So it was, it was a long path. I didn't know business is so broad, and so coming out of BYU, I had 3 offers. One was with Land's End in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's the cheese place, or
no? It's
what do they do
clothing.
There?
It's clothing.
Oh, I'm way
You're
off.
just like Wisconsin cheese. That's the only thing I can think of.
Gets real cheesy there.
That cheese or
they're
butter.
the cheese heads. You see it at the Packers games. They wear the cheese heads.
Good guess.
Okay, well, I don't know anything. Keep going. Yeah.
And then I also had an offer from Payless in Kansas, and then I had an offer from an insurance brokerage in Texas. And the Land's End and the Payless seemed like, it's a big company and just a little more of the corporate America.
Yeah.
And the one in Texas seemed a little higher risk. And we're young, nothing to lose. We don't have anything. And we're like, let's do that.
Yeah. There's a few reasons why I like that. When you said a Payless in Kansas, I was like, that's the most depressing thing I've ever heard.
I do want to tell you about their business, though. It was so fascinating as I was interviewing, because I wanted to keep my options open.
Yeah.
And as I was interviewing, I still remember it like it was yesterday, talking to this guy, and he was looking at my resume. And at the very bottom, you put all this stuff. Everybody has a high GPA, and they've done all these great things, blah, blah, blah. And then at the bottom, I
Lies,
put...
yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of fluff. At the bottom, I put for like interests and other, I can't remember what the title.
Special skills.
Yeah, right. I put flips cars,
I love that.
races motorcycles, and plays the violin. And he was like, he looked at my resume and he didn't want to talk about anything on the top. He was like, tell me about this.
He's like, I love it, but you're probably not our speed around Payless, right? That's great.
Well, and he was just like, who plays the violin and races motorcycles? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, you wanted to know more about me and what made me me. And it was pretty cool because it set me apart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many options. It feels like, at least, there's so many options for businesses. You could attract a lot of people, and what you need is something to set you apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the resumes, I can only imagine that was a horrible job for him. Just read through resumes, right? But it was something so different that he hadn't seen before. And
I think there's a really good piece of advice there for people, especially if you're coming out of school or just in the job market generally, is like when I interview people, and I don't know how many interviews I've done in my career, 500 maybe.
A lot.
Yeah, it's been a fair amount. And one of the things that I always ask people, and some of my staff knows this because they've sat in interviews with me, I want to know like who they are. Like the words on the page of the resume are one thing, but I want to know like who you are. I have to spend like 8 to 10 hours with you every day. Like I want to get a sense. I want to get a sense of like who you are. And so I always ask them like what kind of books do you like to read, or what are you learning about right now, or what are you passionate about, stuff like that, because I'm trying to get into like who are these people a little bit. And then I always ask one, and it usually throws people off. I ask them like, what do you hate the most in life?
That's a great question.
I always ask that. You get weird answers to it too.
Oh, I bet that's
I've had people talk about like, on the way here I got into this like traffic stop, and this other car, he's being a big jerk, so I flipped him the bird, and I'm like, okay, this is not my guy, I don't think. But yeah, it's really interesting to hear how people answer that question. It gives you such an insight into who they are.
Totally. I have a funny one. So as we interview people for Action Motorsports, I always ask them this one question, and I tell them, we are going to do a background check. We do on everybody. What am I going to find on your public record?
I love it.
And people give you all sorts
Do
of
they
stuff.
are they like, well, I'm a felony from,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I tell them I don't want to find any surprises, so be honest. And almost every time they tell me more stuff than is on their public record.
I was going to say I would probably disclose like my deepest, darkest secrets that aren't public
awesome.
record.
What would
it's
you
awesome.
say? Like if somebody asks, like, what?
I don't know that I don't want to talk about my deepest, darkest secrets on this podcast.
Before I started working here, actually, my boss, the CEO, he was like, hey, we're gonna do your background check and everything, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I haven't lived that interesting of a life where there's a bunch of stuff on that thing, right? And anyway, I guess there were some problems about getting the background check back. And not that there was issues with it. It's just he's like, I don't know, the service is taking a long time. He's like, we'll have you go ahead and start. There's not like anything on there that like I should know about, right? It's like, no, I haven't committed any great crimes. And if I had, I would have told you about him in my interview because it would be a great story. But yeah,
yeah, and they'll find out eventually.
Yeah,
and then it's embarrassing.
That's right. Yeah, I haven't Yeah. There's nothing interesting on mine, though, unfortunately.
We decided to go to Texas,
Yes.
and I was selling insurance, and this was kind of a startup company. It wasn't super sexy. It was basically selling property and casualty, home and auto insurance over the phone.
Yeah.
But the company was growing at a super high rate. They were making people partners. The company was worth millions, lots of millions within a very short period of
It's
time.
always fun to be part of something that's high growth.
Yeah.
Like
So
that.
I mean, we knew it was somewhat of a long shot to be able to get in on the big side of it, but we had nothing to lose. So we took the shot. And
Where in Texas was this?
I lived in Grapevine.
Grapevine. Have we talked about this?
I think we have.
Because I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Oh, yeah. So the office was in Colleyville.
Okay. All right.
So just right next to Grapevine. It was just a short drive. Oh, we loved it there. It was so fun.
See, he gets it.
Good
This
old
guy just
Texas.
gets it. Yeah.
Oh, it's yeah, we've got, in fact, one of the things that's on my list that I want to take my wife to do so bad is go country line dancing at like a dance hall in Texas.
Oh, it's
Cool.
the best.
It
Yeah.
is so fun.
It's so fun. In fact, they taught us how to dance like that in like elementary school PE class. We were like doing line dancing. Yeah, that was.
It is a total
thing.
ball. These facilities, the music, the people,
It's
the
fun, man.
people dressing up. It's fantastic.
It is fun.
It is
Yeah.
a really fun thing.
I haven't been to one of those in, I bet a decade. It's been a long time.
Man, we're dreaming. We'll
Yeah.
get back there.
Okay, all right. Keep going.
So I started selling insurance, and it was I worked with great people, and we had so much fun. And after close to a year, I realized, wow, I could do this same thing on my own and make a lot more money. And so I started and quit on the same day, 1 year apart.
Oh,
And the plan was to start my own brokerage. But
Yeah.
literally right before I was quitting, my father-in-law called from Action Motorsports, and he said, hey, my controller's retiring. I need you up here. I really would love to have you. And I thought, oh, working for family. Okay, we'll give it a shot. So I said,
were you like concerned about that decision?
oh,
Like,
somewhat.
what was the wrestle like? Going from I'm going to do my own thing to I'm going to go work for family.
Well, I'm young and dumb and immature, and I didn't really know what that was like, but I'd heard a lot of people say, oh, be careful working for family or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I did a year, and we talked about, okay, after a year, let's do an evaluation. If it's not what I want and if it's not what you want, we can separate. No hard feelings, no big
Right.
deal.
Yeah.
So after a year, I loved it. It was so fun.
Well, you're out flipping motorcycles and stuff, right? So it seems like a good fit. Yeah.
Yeah, when we moved here, I was like, okay, coming from Texas, I need a 4-wheel drive. And I thought, okay, babe, talking to my wife, I think I want to get like a WRX. And she's like, what are you talking about? You need a truck. And I'm like, a truck for what? We don't have anything. Now I have a 3-car garage, and I need like a 5-car. We have so much crap at our house, and it is so fun. We love all of it. So starting at Action, I was just hired to do accounting, and it was just pretty simple work. Basically accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, and that was pretty much it. And within a short period of time, I noticed this business, like a lot of family businesses, people wear a lot of hats, and you help in lots of areas. And it's not so much a clock in, clock out, this is my job, I'm not doing anything else. And I, being family, realized that people from in the business that are looking at me are probably thinking, oh, this kid's a loser, he can't get a job. Chris hired him just to, employ him.
Nepotism and all this stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And, excuse me. And so I made it a goal and a quest that I was going to say yes to everything. So every single thing that somebody approached me with, I said, yeah, let's do it. I'll figure out how to do it. So I started learning really crazy, random things in business that I had no experience. Maybe I had touched on it a little bit in my college courses, but I literally went from, in a short time, doing accounting to, we were having computer issues, so I was the IT guy and I was fixing computers. And then I didn't know how to really design websites, but I had redone several websites for some of his entities. And then we had customer complaints, and so I would go in and help, or I would fix an HR issue with employees, and then I would help with an event that we were doing, and I would help with the advertising, and we'd have these projects, and I would take that on and do, an analysis and help make decisions on that. And literally I just jumped in head first. And it was from bathroom cleanings to big projects. I always said yes, and I made it a point to earn everybody's respect.
So I think this says a lot about like just who you are as an individual, but a lot of people in your scenario would have been like, hey, I'm going to live high on the hog. I got the family gig. Old pop-in-law's going to take care of me, right? And wouldn't have done that, but you decided to go the other direction and say, no, I'm going to go out of my way to earn it. Why did you do that? Like, when it would have been easy to not do that?
Well, I appreciate that. It's just part of who I am. I don't like handouts, and I like things to be super fair, and I want to be able to earn what I'm getting. Mm-hmm. And I have tried really hard to give my employer more value than I'm getting paid for. Mm-hmm. It's just something that I can feel good about in life. Mm-hmm. And it's been a great ride. I've been there. I started in 2010, so I've been there for 12 years. And right now, I am the GM of Action Motorsports, and it's really fun. There's a lot of cool stuff that we do, and we sell really cool products, and it's a blast. We have great people. And like you said, during your interviewing and talking to people, that you're going to spend so much time with them every day. We have great people, and it's true. We spend more time at work than we do at home. Yeah. And so you really have to love what you're doing and love the people that are around you.
Yeah. Yeah, I see Bailey more than my children. Right? Like which is a weird thing to say, but that's just like how life works for most of us,
It is.
Yeah.
And it's been just a really fun place to work. And one of the cool things that sets us apart in this industry, and not everybody can say this, but the customers that walk through the door are there because they want to be. Mm-hmm. Nobody has to come in and buy a dirt bike, or nobody has to go snowmobiling.
Yeah, you're not going to the DMV. Yeah, it's
exactly.
really different.
It's not a government entity or a business that I have to go in there for whatever. Farmers do, they have to have four-wheelers to run their
But they like it too, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So it's just a really cool place to be, and working for the Wrights is just, they're great people. Mm. They are super generous, super giving. They're always involved in the community. And right now they're actually in Mexico serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mm-hmm. So it's 3 years. And so my brother-in-law, Brody, and I are overseeing everything. Yeah. And so they trust us now, which is cool.
Yeah. But they still call every week and make sure.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you gotta stay in tune a little bit.
That's right.
Stay in touch.
So I want to go back just a little bit. So you've been at Action Motorsports 12 years, roughly. And you start as like a junior bookkeeper, and now you're the GM. How did that happen? Like how did that take place?
So the progression was just really gradual, and it was just little by little. And so as Chris would give me more responsibilities, he would say, okay, this guy is capable. Oh, this guy can do that. Or, oh, okay, he can sell, or he can work with customers. And it just kind of, like I mentioned in the family business, people help do everything. I literally every single day, I will help clean something. I will help sell something. I'll help employees, emails, reports, those things every day. And it's hard to say like this happened and then this happened. Really, I was in that position of controller until last year when Joe, our GM that had been with Chris for 30 years, got COVID and passed away.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And he was a staple. I mean, everybody knows Joe. He used to race motocross when he was young. He's been in this community forever. And Joe was so awesome, so dedicated. He gave everything to Action. And when he passed away, it was just the natural progression. Chris just made me the GM. But up to that point, I really was my self description of my title. The best way to describe what I did was I was the assistant GM.
Yeah.
I would do everything Joe didn't want to do.
Right.
So the hiring and the firing and all the crap.
Yeah. That's a lot of growth in a relatively short amount of time. What challenges did you face going through it? Like, what skill sets were you like, I am woefully unprepared to do this thing, but I got to figure out how to do it anyway? And then how did you do it? How did you overcome the challenge there?
So with our business, there's just a lot of angles, a lot of things that we had to work on. Motorsports has a little bit of a reputation for being like auto dealers, but a decade later, or a decade behind, excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
And so if they're, pulling leads online, in 10 years, the power sports will do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have great websites. 10 years later, we have great websites.
Right.
So there is lots of catching up. I noticed when I got there. We did not have any social media platforms.
Wow.
And this is in 2010, so they've
still,
been out for a while.
Pretty big at that point. Yeah.
So I started our Facebook page and Twitter page and Instagram page, and those take a lot of time and they take a lot of focus. And there were a lot of little things like that, including our website. We sort of had inventory on our website, but now it's a full-fledged website where it updates multiple times a day. And these are just big projects that just take time. And like most things in life, honestly, I didn't know how to do it. You just have to dive in and you start figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And today it's weird because you can just go onto YouTube and learn anything.
True.
I was trying to explain to my kids what it was like to work on a project for school and having to go to the library and get books and copy passages out of books. Yeah. And they were like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why didn't you just Google it? And I was like, wait, you didn't have it. You couldn't.
Exactly. So it's just been kind of a learn as you go, and you just catch up and you do little by little. And so we've had all the major issues that every business has, employees, hiring the right people. We have those challenges, and you just keep working through it. You just do the best you can. And our philosophy as a family-owned business is we really want to provide a great value to our employees as well as our customers. Mm-hmm. Chris, our owner, has always done really cool things for the employees. We have some cool, just a little bit unique benefits, from buying parts or machines at a great deal or cost, to we're kind of known for our Christmas parties. They're just a blast, bowling, and Chris is handing out cash for strikes. Boy, and it's a really fun time. So we really try hard to make our employees feel appreciated. And it just takes a lot of effort. Yeah. And it's not necessarily easy, as you talked about challenges. It just takes focus, and it takes energy and time, and we're not perfect, but we do try hard.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth highlighting, trying to find the right people. I want to talk about that just a little bit more, because this is a problem that every business has, and that is getting the right people in the door, right? It's really hard to do, and anybody who's done it for a long time, they've got all kinds of stories about when they got it really right, and then they got all kinds of stories about when they got it really wrong too. So what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is building a team? How do you interview? How do you find them? How do you make sure they're the right fit for you?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have the perfect answers, but I'll tell you some of the things that I do and we believe in. I believe in, so my personal philosophy, as I was telling you earlier, is I want to provide more value than I'm getting paid. That's just maybe it's a pride issue or whatever. When people come in and they say, oh, I need this, it's usually the wrong person. In fact, my brother, who's really smart, he went to Harvard Law School, and this was an interesting story. He got an offer from a law firm. I don't remember where. I think it was in Chicago. And like most situations, people would try and negotiate. And so he offered a counter offer, and they immediately withdrew his offer and said, we're not interested.
Interesting.
So he lost the opportunity to work at that place.
Did they express why?
Yeah, they just said the people that counter offer, they didn't want that type of person because they know that that type of person is usually trying to milk the system a little bit, and they don't provide as much value as they get paid, etc.
Interesting.
Very
Yeah.
Interesting. You'd almost think that, like, in the legal profession, you would want somebody that would argue for themselves, right?
That's right. We want someone who's really
Sounds
sharp.
like a terrible firm, actually. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm just kidding.
So really interesting. I think that so when somebody's willing to work really hard, but I give them a promise and a commitment that we will give them even a short-term pay review and a bump. I just want to make sure they're the right person, and the people that say, "Oh, I'm totally good with that," are usually the right hires.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. What you're kind of doing is saying, like, hey, the money's there, but I'm going to make you work for it.
Yeah,
Totally.
prove yourself.
Yeah, show us. And
Let us see 30 or 60 days, and
Mhm.
let's talk again.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
if they're willing to bust it and really put themselves out there, they're probably the right guy.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Do you ever have people who say, like, yeah, I could probably do that? And I feel like you would want the guy that's like, piece of cake. I
Totally.
got that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of different approaches. What I find fascinating is you said, tell me what you're most scared of. Is that what you said? No. What did you say?
Oh, like, what do you hate?
Oh, what do
just
you hate?
really hate? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've heard in interviews it's good to ask for, give me an example when,
Mhm,
and they can tell you about themselves.
Yeah.
And what I've found, which is cool but shocking to me, is that a lot of people will say, oh, well, let me tell you about this time when I got into a fight with, and I'm like, okay, you're probably not the right person.
You're like, somebody should have coached you on this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So people are very honest sometimes
Mhm.
when you ask them to give examples or things that they don't like
Yeah.
or hate, or when they blew it.
Right.
You know, give me your top 3 weaknesses, those things. Sometimes people are really forward and it's surprising. And sometimes I can totally live with it. I just love the honesty.
I'm the same way. Like, I would way prefer a candidate who's going to say, look, honestly, I'm really bad at X, and it being, really honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that than the guy who's like, I work too hard. I work too hard and I'm a perfectionist, and, I don't see my family enough. And those are my weaknesses.
Yeah.
I just don't buy that. But
Yeah.
if they're just like, sometimes I get disorganized and miss stuff. Like, I'm like, okay, I can maybe live with that. I just need to know,
Yeah, I can usually tell often by when they show up to an interview, how they communicate. We watch that really closely. And I'll often ask people, why do you want to work here? What makes us great? Oh, you live in Rexburg. Why on earth would you drive to Idaho Falls and commute? Like, why don't you go up to Rexburg Motorsports?
Yeah, past 3 other motorsports
Right.
places.
Yeah.
To get here.
And we do this with customers sometimes because I really wholeheartedly believe in getting people the right product at the right time for the right people. And sometimes we'll talk people out of it if it's not a good fit, and same thing with employment. Ultimately, it has to be a win-win. And the day it's no longer a win-win, it's a win-lose. That's when you need to make a change. And so hopefully you can weed those people out in the interviewing process and quickly, as opposed to, okay, we're 6 months down the road and you put them in a leadership responsibility, and then you have to worry about retraining and then hiring the next qualified person, and it's expensive and it's painful and it's, ugh.
I've always said people are the best and worst part of every business. Right?
It's so true.
It's a difficult asset to manage, but that's also the magic of the organization too.
Totally. And that's one thing that you guys have always impressed me with is your people are awesome. Every single person that we've worked with, I'm like, wow, they hire the right people.
We also beat them a lot when they're back at the office. Yeah, just to keep them in line, right?
Well, it's working.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Serious. Every person I've met from your organization is A+.
Awesome.
Really
Awesome.
cool.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. So obviously the hiring, the firing, the management of people is a challenge. What other kinds of challenges have you experienced over the course of these 12 years that you feel like have kind of shifted maybe the way you think about your job and what you do?
Last year, I had a big paradigm shift. I was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma.
Wow.
And so I got a cancer diagnosis in February of last year, and it was pretty scary. So I have 4 boys and a wife, and we live here in Idaho Falls, and their ages 3 to 10. And so it was kind of this moment where you do a lot of self-checking and self-reflection and think, oh, wow, what if I don't make it?
How did it begin? What physically were you feeling that made you go to the doctor to see what was going on?
At East Idaho Credit Union, we offer startup loans for emerging businesses to help support you in the early stages of growth. This could be for inventory, equipment, or other operating expenses. Almost all businesses qualify. Get started today by visiting us at eastidahocu.org/start, federally insured by the NCUA.
How did it begin? What physically were you feeling that made you go to the doctor to see what was going on?
Yeah, great question. This is one of my takeaways, my life lessons from this cancer experience is pay attention to your body. I started having pains. I described it as right where my ribs separate. Turns out I had a mass in my liver, so it was down a little further. And I would wake up in the night sometimes just gut-wrenching pain. It was so bad. And my wife's like, you need to go get checked out right away. And it was like December. And I'm like, well, let's wait for a fresh deductible. I'll go in January, which was so dumb. But it worked out.
I've had those conversations with my spouse too. Yeah. Let's just,
We all think that way.
Wasn't it
Totally.
funny?
Because health insurance sucks nowadays.
yeah.
It's always expensive. And anyway. And so I was actually this is kind of a funny story. One of my best friends, Chad Erickson in Rexburg, we were driving to Alpine, Wyoming to a Dan Adams, who's a professional snowmobiler, avalanche class. And Chad and I are in the truck talking. And I'm like, gosh, I just have this goofy pain right here. It just hurts a lot. And he's like, don't say that. That's exactly what I said right before I got diagnosed with lymphoma. So I call him up in February, and I'm like, Chad, do you remember that conversation? And he's like, no.
Wow.
Don't tell me. I said, yeah, I just got diagnosed with cancer. And it was a life-changing event for us. I'll give you kind of the highlight, and if you want to hear some of the life lessons, I'm happy to share them. But we were just totally shocked. I mean, I'm in my 30s,
right,
and I have stage 4 cancer. Like, there's a chance I'm not going to make it. And the mass in my liver, every doctor that looked or heard about it thought the same thing, cholangiocarcinoma. So it's basically a death sentence. I was in trouble. And then the biopsy came back as this is lymphoma. And it was like, yes, yes, we could do this.
Oh,
it's beatable.
Yeah, cheering for lymphoma is a new one for me.
That night, I still remember my wife and I were in my truck. We're in the elementary school parking lot on the phone late at night with the doctor we had scheduled. He had just talked to the pathologist, and he called to give us the news what type of cancer. And we were just, I shouldn't say overjoyed, but we were thrilled. We were thrilled that it was
you went from death sentence to
I've got a chance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we went to Cold Stone. There's like a teenager working behind the counter.
I have lymphoma. Right?
It was like so funny. Oh, and she's like, how are you? And we're like, we're doing great. We're celebrating. And she's like, what are you celebrating? And we're like, well, we're celebrating I have this type of cancer, not this really bad kind of cancer. And she was like, okay, congrats, I guess.
Can you please just order so you can leave? Yeah.
So awkward for her. We didn't care. We were like, this is awesome. It was so funny. So then I started meeting with the Teton cancer guys. My doctor, Brad Adams, just unbelievable, top notch, super great person. And the people there, it just, for them, it's a job.
Yeah.
But for me, my life is on the line.
Yeah.
These people are angels.
Yeah.
We went up to the Madison, what's the hospital in Rexburg? Madison Memorial, right? Madison Memorial. Those nurses are all angels. Holy cow, they just treated us with so much love and compassion. It was unbelievable. And I can't tell you what that felt like and what that meant for us. But so I even had my first round of chemo, and it was so gross. That stuff is just nasty. You feel so sick. And one day, I think it was between my first and second round of chemo, I pinched my hair and pulled out a huge clump. And I was like, oh my gosh, my hair is coming out. Now I know why people shave their heads. And have you ever worn a hat too long and your like scalp hurts? Have you ever had that happen? So that's what my head felt like. Just laying down on the pillow hurt really bad. And so I told my wife it's time to shave my head. And then when I was like really nervous to go in there. I have some gray hair. It's kind of I wear a hat, so I'm not very, my hair's not done, but it's kind of like, I don't know, a little different, and it's sort of my look. And so to have, just
Silver
imagine,
fox, yeah.
great. Imagine shaving your head and this is your new look. And it's like, oh, that person looks sick, so I was nervous. And then when we shaved my head, it became real. Like, okay, I am sick. And I love, Dr. Adams said from start to finish, this is a curable disease and this is what we're going for. We're going for a cure. And so we went through treatment, and I don't really have adequate words to express the experience that we had, but people reached out in love. My in-laws had arranged like a car parade with coworkers and friends and family, and they drove through, and we just bawled for 30 minutes as these cars drove through, and just people made signs. And sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but it was amazing to feel that much love and that much strength from people that they say, we're praying for you. And when everything was on the line, it was life-changing. And there are a few things that just absolutely taught us these life lessons that we will never forget. One of my friends, Russ, who lives in Texas, he called me and he gave me this, he said this, and I love the way he said it. He said, you are on the cliff looking over the edge. What can you see that we can't see? You can see things because you're right at the edge of death and are experiencing these life-changing emotions and experiences. What can you see? And one of my life lessons was to make time to make memories. So what's cool is my business, what we sell is fun. And none of that stuff means anything. But if you're using it to make memories with your loved ones, you can't put a price on that. And it doesn't matter if you're riding razors together, or if you just do a family movie night every Monday, or like in our house, I make lunch every Sunday. I make these Swedish pancakes. It's like crepes. And the kids love them. They call them Nutella pancakes because they just drown the pancake in Nutella. And it's just a family tradition. And it's amazing what those traditions and those memories mean when life takes a turn downward. And maybe you longboard at the Greenbelt or whatever it is, find some traditions. You don't have to spend a bunch of money, but doing some things when you're in a time of crisis, those memories and those traditions and those habits will give you a lot of strength. And that was one really cool takeaway. Another one was, a lot of times, I know you guys have probably come across family or friends or coworkers that are in crisis. Maybe they got a cancer diagnosis, maybe somebody passed, whatever that is. And have you guys ever felt like, I don't know what to do? Like, I want to help, but I don't know what to say, so I'm not going to say anything. Or I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to bring anything. One of my takeaways was do something. It really doesn't matter. Just do something. And what I noticed is a family bringing a meal, a text message, a phone call, a letter, just a note, hey, we're praying for you, whatever that was, it meant so much. And collectively, those things were, life-changing for us. We just have been so blessed with, this cancer experience was such a garbage thing, such a bad thing, and it turned into the coolest experience. It was, I would never ask for cancer, but going through what I did and experiencing the things, I am just so grateful. What a huge opportunity to learn these amazing lessons. It's not every day that you get an opportunity to have like a really strong self-check in life where, okay, am I where I want to be? Do I have the relationships with my loved ones the way I want to be? Do we have, our finances in order? Do we have things that if something bad happened, I'm okay with it? And so in our church, we have temples, and you get these recommends to go in and do baptisms or whatever. That's where my wife and I were married and sealed. And so my wife and I were driving to Island Park shortly after I got my diagnosis, and I've done lots of garbage in my life, and I've done stuff that I regret and I shouldn't have.
You and everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And what was so cool is we were driving to Island Park and had one of the coolest experiences we've ever had in our marriage. And she read me those temple questions. And for us, faith and religion is a really big deal. Mm-hmm. And she read me those temple questions, and I could answer yes and correctly to every one of those questions. And it was the most incredible experience where we felt like, okay, so if this goes bad, and it might, we're going to be okay. Because one of our beliefs is families can be together forever. Mm-hmm. And it was, I can't tell you what that felt like, the amount of peace and how beautiful that was. If things go bad, we are going to be okay. God will help you. And it made me feel so bad just to think about my wife having to raise my boys and my boys not having their dad, but we knew we would be okay. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty dang cool. And one thought I had, this is so funny because this is not really necessary, but I'll tell you because I think it's funny. But I don't know, girls and guys, if they're all like this stereotype I'm going to tell you, but I always feel like guys are just like, yeah, whatever, and girls are a little more like way into feelings and maybe jealous. And so occasionally in the family, we've had conversations. Okay, if I die, my wife would joke like, you can never get remarried, and here I am about to die. And I'm like, you need to get remarried immediately. That's how I genuinely thought. I'm like, you need to marry someone who's just a spiritual stud and will take care of our boys. And it was just kind of interesting. You don't really think really hard about that until you're facing something serious.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to get remarried right away. It didn't bother me at all. Isn't that funny?
You're too practical. That's the thing. Yeah.
Well, you just want people to take care of your loved ones, Mm-hmm. So those are just a couple life lessons that we learned in this process.
Yeah. I I think about my wife is a theater director, and she did a play for, there was a playwright who went to one of her shows once upon a time and really liked the work that she was doing. And so he actually wrote a play, and he handed it to her and said, I'd really like you to produce this and direct this play. And so she did. And it's still one of my favorites that she's ever done. And she's done countless plays at this stage. But and I've talked about it like for a moment on this podcast once before. But it's a play. It's just a 2-man show, and it's like one act, and it's like 50 minutes long. It's really short. And it's this older man and a younger man, and I don't think you even know their names. And they're standing underneath the northern lights at night. And the old man is about to pass away. He's got some like respiratory disease or something like that. And one of the things that the young man asks him is just, like, what are your regrets over the course of your life? And ultimately, the message of that whole show is don't wait, right?
Love that.
Don't wait to do the things that are important, because you never know what's ultimately going to happen. And what's really, really interesting about it is the actor who portrayed that old man, I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was within like 6 months later, was diagnosed with the same disease of this character that he played,
Wow.
and then died a year later.
No way.
And so right before he passed away, he was talking to my wife, and he was like, yeah, it's so crazy, how life imitates art, and in this case, a very real way.
Yeah.
But he also talked about how over the last year since doing that play, he changed the way he decided to do things because he learned that same lesson. And and I don't know all the details of what he decided to do, but he decided I wasn't going to wait anymore. And he went out and did all these things that he felt like were important for his life. And your story's so poignant for me because, I mean, you and I are about the same age, I think. And gosh, you got to look right down the barrel at that thing, man. And the message remains true. Like, you cannot wait to do the things that are important, whatever those might be, whether it's,
Totally
experiences
agree.
and time with your family or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get so caught in the day-to-day and the routine, and maybe we get swallowed in work or
Yeah.
whatever else it is. Maybe it's hobbies or something that's every extra ounce of energy we have gets sucked up by that. We need to do a little bit of self-checking.
Yeah.
And maybe your life maybe you're not gonna have a death, or maybe it's something else where there's a car accident, or maybe somebody needs you because you weren't available, but maybe you need to be a little more available.
Yeah.
Be in tune. I want to tell you about one group that we just learned about, and we started to get involved at Action Motorsports, which is really cool. It's called the Hope Squad. And down in Provo, I think it was the Provo, Utah School District, there was a really young person, fourth grader, that took his life, and this teacher just couldn't handle it. And so he created the Hope Squad, and the whole entity is designed to prevent suicide, promote mental health. And so I went to the IF high school because we have a coworker who has a daughter in that class. And I went, and I couldn't help but think about my cancer experience. These kids don't enroll in the class. They get nominated by their peers. And the whole goal of this is these peers are to put their phones away, look up, look out, help those around them, be cognizant and aware of what's going on, include people, do activities together, engage with each other instead of, the phones and the games and the tune out of life and let's numb ourselves because I'm tired. I veg out all the time when we watch Netflix, but so a little bit of that's good.
Yeah.
But spend some time and look out and help those around you. And I was just blown away. I'm like, these kids are amazing. If they can learn this life lesson that's so important, that's needed so much in our life, in the world right now, if they can learn it at this stage in their life, how freaking cool is that?
Yeah.
And so we've done some fundraising and supporting them, but really a cool thing, Hope Squad, it's in every high school in our city and a lot of the other high schools around, and actually in my elementary school that three of my boys go to. I just got an email. They just started it. So I called them up. I'm like, hey, we'll help you guys with whatever you need. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So pretty cool thing.
Yeah. It was interesting. Before we started recording, we'll give our listeners a peek behind the curtain for just 1 minute. You and I were talking, and I asked you, like I ask all of our guests, like, is there anything that you don't want us to talk about, like that you don't want shared here? And somehow we got to talking about this experience that you'd had. And I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but it was something like, is this appropriate for this kind of a podcast? And I said, of course it is. And the reason that I think it is because we do this really funny thing as human beings where we like to compartmentalize all these different parts of our life, and we say, well, this is my personal life, and this is my work life, and this is my time with my family, and this is, but we forget that we're just not really that good at compartmentalizing stuff, and things that happen over here affect what happens over here. And ultimately, I think, this is my own personal belief. I think businesses exist and should exist to do good for the world around them. And if they're not accomplishing that in some sort of way, then you really need to be considering what kind of business you're involved with. But, hearing a story and an experience like that has to be part of how you work every day. It has to be part of like how you manage your team and how you work with them and think about them and feel about them. Since going through that experience, how has it changed you as a GM of this organization?
At East Idaho Credit Union, we're changing the future of business with our Velocity Money Market account. You can receive unbeatable returns on tiered interest rates. We have rates up to 2.02% annual percentage yield. East Idaho Credit Union puts local businesses first because when you do better, we all do better. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Since going through that experience, how has it changed you as a GM of this organization?
That's a super great question. I've noticed myself personally, my feelings and my attitudes have shifted, and I would say a little bit softer. I used to be a little more aggressive driver. I'm not very aggressive anymore. Just weird stuff. I used to always want the latest Samsung phone, and I just really don't care anymore. It just doesn't mean anything to me, and I'm not totally sure why, but it's interesting. Life-changing experiences can really, truly alter how you feel and how you see the world. And I've found myself being far less judgmental, which is so great because I want to be, and
Yeah.
I want to be more forgiving and more compassionate and more understanding. Up before this experience, I didn't know somebody had cancer. I was like, oh, that's really bad. I'm so sorry. I had no real empathy. I didn't know what it was, what it felt like. And wow, we have a lot of friends and family that are affected by cancer.
Yeah.
You get something and then you start paying attention, and now I can truly help and I can empathize with people. So at the workplace, I would say that this experience has just given me a little bit more compassion. I'm a little less reactive and a little more understanding. And I have just kind of learned to not sweat the small stuff as much.
Yeah.
You can make a really big deal out of small things every day. We all have things that just irk us, or I can't believe she said this, or whatever. And most of the time, it's almost like texting, going like fighting with someone through text. Like things are misinterpreted all the time, right? Most of the time when you sit down with somebody face to face and you talk about something, you aren't very different. And they didn't mean things very ignorant, like you interpreted or you took it. And it's just really kind of refreshing to just, like I said, it's sort of a reset button for my life. I feel so blessed to be able to have an experience where I can just self-check and say, okay, wow, is this where I want to be? And is this the kind of person I want to be? And is this who I want to be remembered? And is this the legacy I want to leave? Like, I can create that every day.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get so sucked into this, we need to be this and give 1,000%. And, you can slow down a little bit and just chill and enjoy the moment.
Yeah. You're a super personable guy, and every time I've walked into your shop, you're always like, hey, what's going on? And, and so you clearly interact with a lot of people. What have other people said to you regarding how you've changed since your experience with cancer? Have they said, Dutch, you're different, and here's why, and it's frankly, it's an improvement. We like that. I'm just kidding.
I love it. I don't know that I've changed that much. like at a surface level. I've always tried to be really kind.
Mhm.
Growing up in my family, I was the youngest of 5. I was the peacemaker.
Mm.
I didn't want anybody to fight and oh no, mom and dad or dad and brother. I didn't want any of that. And so I've always tried to be really friendly and kind. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
So I don't know on the surface that I've changed that much, but inside, big time.
Probably the people closest to you notice it the most.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And talking with my wife, it's just cool coming out on top of a big experience. You just kind of feel like you could take anything on. There's a couple things that I tell myself, I don't know that I could ever get past this or over it, but coming out triumphant for a big experience, it boosts your confidence and it makes you think twice about, wow, with some higher help, with some higher power, you can do anything. And most of the time, I mean, you hear this cliche, oh, things will all work out, but they always do, right?
Sure.
Sometimes when it works out in a bad way, you're like, oh, this is painful, but that's okay. Pain equals growth and strength, and you can learn from that.
Yeah.
Right. And you learn these lessons that you're like, okay, it's like with my kids, I'm like, yeah, I want you to struggle sometimes. And I want you to be able to fight with your brother and then learn how to forgive and take it on, let you figure out your problems, not swoop in. And it used to be helicopter parents, right?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
They're always hovering. Today, my wife said it's snowplow parents where they just plow every obstacle out of the way. So kids just cruise through life and it's easy peasy.
Oh, that's so funny.
Every day. And they don't experience hardship and trials.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with us. Like, yeah, we hate pain. We hate hardship, but it is so great for us. Because it refines you and it strengthens you.
Yeah.
And that is a great thing. I mean, coming on the tail end of cancer, it was like, okay, this is really cool. I mean, I'm grateful for that experience.
Yeah, I read a book a number of years ago called what was it called? I think it was The Gift of Failure.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and it basically talks about what you just explained about how failure, while it's painful, that pain is among the greatest teachers that we can have in our lives, right? And so they're talking about it as a parenting book, right? So letting your kids, if they didn't finish their homework, they didn't finish their homework and they got to take the fail, right? They just have to.
Bad grade, deal with it.
Yeah,
Natural consequence.
That's your problem. You got to maybe do better next time, right? I also heard somebody express it one time that, like, when your kids are doing dangerous things carefully,
I love that. Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you need to just let them do it, right?
Yeah.
They need to just experience it. And I always like the way that was put. But you got to be at a point in your life where you're just not really afraid of anything anymore, aren't you? Right?
Well,
Like what really scares you?
My
at this
biggest
point?
nightmare?
Yeah.
I know exactly what it is. So I'll share it. It's actually the same since I was a little kid, is just falling into like a hole of ants and ants just taking over my whole body. It's all, maybe it came from like arachnophobia or something.
Great movie. Great movie.
But
yeah.
I think I stepped into an ant hole or what do you call those? Ant
hill.
Ant-hill, thank you.
Yeah.
As a kid, and they like started coming up my leg, and I think that's what triggered me. I was like, that would be the worst way to die.
But at this point, like after going through so much, like if a guy like road rages or something, you got to be like,
yeah. I mean,
I'm not worried about that.
I still have some natural man, but I, it's, you just learn a little more, you sharpen your skill set, how to deal with things. And yeah, I would say there's nothing I'm necessarily like truly, deeply, overwhelmingly afraid of, but it's just, I mean, God's got a plan for everybody. And, why would you want anything other than that?
Yeah. Yeah.
He can do a lot more than we can. And so if we just welcome whatever life brings us with open arms and look for the good, this is something I want to share with you. So during my cancer process, it was weird to me how many times the nurses and the doctor said, if you can maintain a positive attitude, if you can stay positive and focus on the good and really work mentally and emotionally to beating this and know that you will beat it, it will help you so much. And I'm thinking, what's the science behind that? How does that even work? I that's way outside of what I can understand.
Yeah.
And they said it so many times, I believed them. And I think there's something to that. Our bodies are really amazing and they can do amazing things. And sometimes we don't always understand the way all that works. You know, it's almost like prescribed medicine versus holistic stuff. You know, is the holistic stuff witchcraft or no? I think there's something to it. You know, it's maybe it wasn't approved by FDA, but there's probably some great benefit in certain ways. Same thing with our mental and emotional health and outlook on life. I saw, and they would share, you know, some examples of people that really struggled because they were Debbie Downers. They were pessimists. And it's
physically struggled because of their,
Yes. And it was really surprising to me because I'm a logical person and I think, okay, well, if this happens, then you do this. And it's like mental, like, how is that going to help me? But it totally did.
Well, your mind is part of your body, I suppose, huh? When it gets down
that's
to
true.
it. It's interesting that you said that. I have a friend who was just diagnosed with cancer about, I don't know, maybe a week ago or so. And he shared that as well. His doctor told him, like, keep positive, stay positive, and that'll go a long way to helping you beat this. And interesting. That particular lesson's got around, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense in a way that if you look at like these super athletes that hike Mount Everest or did the biggest, 5 marathons in a row or whatever it is. And how do they accomplish? How does Lance Armstrong, how is he so good? Okay, his heart's a little bigger than the average person, but still, like, how do you, and the mental and the emotional side has to play a huge role.
Yeah.
100%.
I used to run ultra marathons, and a common phrase and term that's used throughout that community is you don't run an ultra marathon with your legs. You run it with your mind, right? And that's totally true, because I actually think almost anybody could probably get off the couch and run a marathon. Might not be fun, might not be pleasant, but probably any one of the people standing and sitting in this room right now could walk outside, put on some running shoes, and run a marathon. Might take you 10 hours, right? But
good point.
You're physically able to do it because most of it's done with your mind, actually.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So and that really, something that our owner said a lot, which I love, is you create your own weather. You're, I'm in a funk and life is horrible. Well, it might a lot be right here.
Yeah.
You can look to the positives and you can look to the good and you can set good goals and work towards those things. And that's what you go for and that's what you focus on. And wow, it's sunny again,
Yeah. I want to ask you what's next for Action Motorsports and Dutch? Like, what does the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years look like for you guys over there?
Well, I think at our business, Chris has had this for over 30 years. So it's reached its maturity phase and its growth phases. Now, there's still some growth to be had. The COVID last couple of years increased demand tremendously. Outdoor recreation's at an all-time high and will continue to be high. But I
think is one of like the great unintended consequences.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Of COVID.
Yeah, people going out and enjoying nature and spending time together and creating family
discovering
memories.
it for the first time. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
Totally agree. But for Action, I think we're on just a really great course. We have a manageable team as far as the number of employees, great people working for us, and I would say healthy sales. And I think that we'll probably stick similar because we're in that mature phase with some growth. Right now, we don't have any plans for opening a second store or...
Why not?
Well, maybe we will. The plan is Brody and I, my brother and I, will buy the business at some point. And when we own it and it's our money, maybe we'll decide that, hey, we could do this in Island Park or something else. Nothing's off the table. So.
Sure.
But right now, we don't have plans for it. this is the first time Chris has been away for an extended period of time and left the business to us. So it's a good time that we can kind of prove ourselves that we can do it without him being here and watching everything, that we're trustworthy and we can handle it. And as far as me, I love what I'm doing. I work with great people. I love Idaho Falls. This is a great place to raise a family. We just have a killer community. And I know the winters are cold and miserable sometimes, but they're awesome because we get all 4 seasons. And this is my philosophy. If you hate winter, you need a hobby.
Yeah. You and I talked about this a while back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You just start skiing, start snowmobiling, find something, snowshoe. If you have good hobbies, you can't wait for the next storm.
Oh, that's a weird way to think. Yeah, I had no idea. I was talking to my boss about this, and I was like, I think this winter, because I was here for last winter, and it was pretty rough.
It's colder than
It
Texas.
was a little colder, and I think it was rough because it was like, what do we do? We just try not to freeze to death. As far as that's all we can do. But I was talking to my boss, and I was like, this year I'm gonna find. I was talking to Dutch, and he told me I got to do something, and so I'm gonna do something.
Go.
And I was like, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, maybe I'll try some skiing. And he's like, no, you don't want to do that. He's like, you're too late in the game for skiing. You'll mess up your knees. You don't want to do that. I was like,
Try it.
All right.
Try it.
I was like, well, maybe I want to do some snowmobiling. No, you don't want to do that. Oh, one avalanches. You'll make sure you're carrying a beacon. You could die. And I'm like, oh golly, I don't. Is there any winter sport that I won't put me in grave physical danger? And he's like, not really. You're going.
Go cross country skiing.
Yeah, that's what I kind of landed on.
Oh, that's funny. Harriman State Park up in Island Park is really cool. My wife went up there and she said it was so beautiful.
Okay.
She had
Yes.
a blast.
I'm gonna try that. And you and I were gonna go snowmobiling this
do it.
winter. Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Well, what else? What else is next for you guys? Action Motorsports.
Well, there are a few other businesses that our owner has, which we just kind of help manage and keep eyes on and help and promote. Up in Island Park, we have a hotel resort, Sawtell Mountain Resort, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful lodge, and it has a whole variety of lodging, from hotel rooms to cabins to suites to an RV park to tent sites. It's a really cool spot. And right next door on the same property is High Mountain Adventures, which is action motorsports, but rentals. So snowmobiles in the winter and razors in the summer. And there's also some cool water sports up there. So we rent kayaks and tubes and paddle boards because floating Big Springs is so pretty. It's cold, but it's really pretty. So we provide that stuff as well. So there's always a lot to do between all the businesses. And it just keeps us on our toes, but it's really fun. And it's just honestly the best. It's the funnest, business I could possibly come up with, and in the most beautiful area.
Yeah.
So you can't lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you this too. You've kind of talked about these different phases of your career, right out of school, coming into the business, and now, as GM of this business. What kind of advice would you give to people at those 3 stages maybe in their career, starting with right out of school, into this business, into your career path finally, and GM level?
I'm glad you asked that because I do have some strong feelings about this.
Yeah.
So I had a real estate professor at BYU, and he gave me some advice I'll never forget. Oh, what was it? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. He said something that has always stuck with me, and I thought, wow, I don't really want to do that, but that's great advice. He said, when you graduate college, you get the hardest possible job. You get down in the trenches. You do the murky, yucky, gross, the job that no one else wants to do. Yeah. And you do that for a few years. And if you do that and you learn how to work and you learn what it means to work, your career will be very successful. He said, I know some of you in this class have daddy warbucks with some empire that will hook you up with a perfect, super sweet job, and your career will be miserable. You'll burn it down.
Interesting.
He said, get the crap job right out of school. Work your butt off. Yeah. And it will teach you everything you need to know to have a successful career. And so I took that to heart. When I started, I was doing all the random crap. You know, I'll say yes to everything.
Well, and it ingratiates you to your employer as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you become not just like
You're
reliable.
the go-to guy.
You're the guy.
You're the guy.
Exactly. But something that I've seen, I have a little bit of maybe an old school philosophy, but not that you have to stay with the same employer forever, but I literally think you can be in any job in any company across the country, and if you follow just a very simple pattern, you will be very successful. And that is, you just do the basics. You show up a little bit early. You like interact with people with some positivity, with a smile and a hello, not a I'm on my phone or it's morning, whatever. And you just focus and become an absolute pro in your job. And I can think of one technician that we have at our store right now. He had no mechanical background, but he loved motorsports, and it was his dream to work here. And we gave him a shot. And for the first, 6-12 months, we probably lost money on him.
Yeah.
But he is our highest producing technician right now. He loves it. And so it's a perfect fit. And he does awesome work for us. And he's successful in his career. And he could probably do a lot of things and be successful. But he is probably the tech that we've employed over the last however many years that has given us the least drama, the least amount of attitude. If you just do some simple things, just show up early, be happy, be positive, put your plow in the ground and go to work instead of just thinking about, the grass is always going to be greener. I need to find my next gig. I'm not quite happy, or this owner is kind of a piece or whatever. Every business has challenges. Every business has some hard work and some things that don't go great.
Yeah.
I really don't care what you're doing. If you just put your plow in the ground and go to work, you will be successful.
Yeah. I like that advice so much because it requires zero talent.
Exactly.
No talent at all. Just show up, work hard, have a good attitude. No talent necessary.
Exactly.
And you'll be wildly successful with it.
You have 100% control over those things.
That's right. Yeah.
You can be early. You can work hard. You can smile. You can be pleasant. You can, a lot of those simple things you can totally control. You can create your own weather, and you can control your own destiny.
I've always hired more for like the attitude and the person more than I've hired for the skill set. And that came largely from an experience I had several years ago. I was working at this company, and my CEO came to me and he's like, "Hey, I really want to start this consulting division that I want you to kind of head up and take care of." And I was like, "That sounds cool." And he's like, "But I want to brand it as like the smartest human beings that you could hire." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "So I want you to go hire a couple of Harvard MBAs to, be in this department." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went and we hired 4 of them, and all Harvard MBAs.
Super smart.
Very intelligent people, and they were terrible. Just flat out, they were terrible employees for us because they didn't do those things that you just talked about. They
weren't coachable.
They weren't coachable by any stretch. They didn't work hard. They didn't show up. They didn't give it their all. And so what we did, the lesson was we hired for the credential and we didn't hire for the person. And it was a huge mistake. And none of those guys ended up sticking around. And thankfully, none of them stuck around, right? They were terrible. And what we ended up doing was flipping that around entirely and hiring for the right person and paying a little less attention to the credentials. And it was way more successful when we just got the right people there. We had this one guy, he dropped out of high school. I don't even know how he ended up at the company, to be honest.
I love it.
But he dropped out of high school, but he was a brilliant guy and was willing to if we got the call, we need somebody in Boston tomorrow morning, he'd be like, "I got it." And he would get on a flight in the next hour and he'd go and he'd kill it,
I love that.
And So yeah, hiring for the person over the credential or over the like resume item is powerful. Yeah.
The real estate professor I mentioned from BYU, he told me something else that I've never forgotten. He was awesome,
Yeah.
if you can't tell. He said, I would take a B idea with A people
Yes.
every day
Every day.
over an A idea with B people.
Yeah. Well, so I've worked in a world where there was a lot of venture capital and private equity money that was flowing into it. And usually a venture capitalist is way more interested in the team. They bet on the jockey, not on the horse, right? It's that same exact concept. And so if they've got the right team, he's like, I don't even care what the product is. These are the people, right?
I love
it's
that.
pretty interesting. Yeah.
Well, and you can see it in business today. Like I was telling you about your crew. You guys are great people. Everyone has a positive, a great vibe. Everybody's friendly and helpful. And geez, those are the people you want.
Yeah, 100%. I inherited all these people, so I can't take too much credit for it.
Love it.
But I did tell my boss, I don't remember, a while back though, and I was like, I inherited them, but I'd hire all of them, given the choice, right? So
That's a good way to say it.
yeah. Okay, what else? What other kinds of advice would you have? Let's talk about somebody who's maybe more along in their career, more senior. What kind of advice would you give those guys?
Well, I do have gray hair, but I'm not that old.
You have a lot more than me, actually, and I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know that I know what to say for senior people. I mean, we've had some people that are close to retirement working for us, and we've had both sides, the great and the not so great. And I would say the great people are still the same habits. They're pleasant. They can be some of your greatest assets because they know everything. They've been around the block. They know life, and they also know the business. And those people are fantastic. In hiring, this was kind of interesting, in hiring a replacement for me, Chris and I were talking, and we both said this independently and had the same answer for who we wanted to hire. And it was like a gal in her 50s. That's what we both wanted.
Yeah.
Because we both thought they would just be super solid. They've been around the block. They're not having all guilty as charged. We have young kids and they're sick and we got to run to the whatever. And, but someone like that. So senior, more mature in their career can be fantastic employees that are very, very highly desirable in the workforce. But you still have to be pleasant because that can be a tough one for people that know everything, and have been there forever.
Sure.
And just, the same habits, I would say.
Yeah. I can't remember who told me this, but they told me no matter what age you are in your career, always be 35. and this was the rationale. This is why they said that. If you're under 35, you want to be mature, you want to be capable, you want to be knowledgeable about your topic. So you should work towards, that as a 35-year-old in theory is a little more mature, a little bit more capable, a little, greater knowledge about what their career and their topic is. And if you're over 35, you also want to be 35 because you want to maintain the energy level that a 35-year-old has. So they thought that's like the prime, right, at 35 years old. And because you get this good intersection of energy and knowledge and ability, right? And so that was the advice. Always be 35.
I like that. It makes sense to me.
Isn't that interesting?
I'm not too far off from that.
Yeah. Me neither.
We're all
I'm
35.
still pretty close. Yeah.
That's right. We're 35.
What's your message to the world?
Okay. My message would really be back to some of the takeaways, the life-changing experiences that I had, which is just sometimes it's okay to just slow down, take a breath, relax, make the big things not so big, and don't let the small things bother you that much. But if you just follow some simple, basic ideas, you can be wildly successful. And we have had, at Action Motorsports, we've had salesmen that have retired with a lot of money, and they didn't have this wildly huge successful career as far as dollars are concerned, where they're making hundreds of thousands. Not at all. But they were wise with their money, and they followed some simple habits, and they just had return customers. I can think of one off the top of my head who just did a great job. But my message is to, take an opportunity to do a little bit of self-checking and where you're at in life, and make sure it's where you want to be. And if you're not there, that's okay. Every day is a new beginning, and we can make some changes, and nobody's perfect. I don't know that anybody's exactly where they want to be, but I would just encourage everyone to really consider the things that are truly important. Careers are very important, but your loved ones are extremely important. And, if we need to go outside of our comfort zone a little bit to make things right, it's totally worth it, because life can change quickly.
Beautiful. Dutch, how can people find you in Action Motorsports?
Well, my office is towards the front of the store, but just grab our sweet Sydney at the front desk, and she'll page me.
Okay. And
what about what social pages are you on?
Yeah.
So you saying our business or my personal?
Yeah, probably your business. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you want to give out your personal, that's fine too. Yeah.
So Action Motor has a Instagram, and that's the one that we post most frequently, as well as Facebook. My wife and I documented our kind of cancer journey, and the Instagram handle is Dutch.strong.
Love it. And then your shop here is in Idaho Falls. What road is that off of?
Lincoln.
Okay. Right off of Lincoln. Website? What's your website?
actionmotorsports.com.
Beautiful. Okay.
Awesome.
Dutch, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Great advice, great insights. It was awesome. Really, really enjoyed it. We hope you'll join us next time on the Dragon Slayer podcast by East Idaho Credit Union. We'll see you.
Woo!